Well, it's Pascal Nejadi, former investment banker, and injured by 3 Pfizer injections, bioweapons, and now engaging my first and last battle for humanity, for the protection and defense. We have to start with the history. There is a long history with the snake. The old Egyptian word pharaoh is not king. In fact, pharaoh means viper. Now, in the old Egyptian history, the pyramids that Cheops, for instance, which is 140 something meters tall, 6 million tons of stone, supposedly built 4,000 years before Christ. I believe it's older. Never mind, let's say it's 4,000 years. MIT Boston, with their supercomputers, cannot come up with an engineering model of our technology today to rebuild this monument. First, now Pharaoh the snake, they were bad people. And the viper in the old ancient times is the symbol for evil, or for, if you want to say so, Satan or devil. They migrated because the knowledge normally progresses linear from generation to generation. So if you learn how to build a pyramid 4,000 years before Christ, you should be able at least to build it today in 2023 or bigger. But we know that's not the case. In Cairo, they're building high-rise, 50 floors, and that's it. So there's a gap in evolution. That means they vanished, they didn't die. They migrated, they left the place suddenly. And I leave it up to, imagination. Some people say they went out off planet and all these things. Let's stay with that, what we know. They migrated. They didn't migrate to Israel or up the Nile to Victoria Lakes or Uganda, they migrated to Geneva, to Switzerland. We have an old, ancient, ski resort, St. Moritz, very famous, very expensive, has its own airport. In the winter you have all kinds of private jets there from New York and all over the place. St. Moritz was the name given for Maurice, which was a field marshal. Switzerland called on Egyptian legions to liberate from the Romans, and he was in the Roman League and basically turned to get the job of Switzerland, and he started to interject with the Romans, and they started battling in the San Bernardino, in the mountains not far from here. We are at 1,500 meters, 4,500 feet right now, but it's across the valley. And it was an Egyptian warrior officer who led an Egyptian brigade or regiment in the valley of Engadine, which is St. Moritz today. Saint Maurice, his name was Maurice. Not many Swiss people know that. They also made a study, it's on swissinfo.ch, you can check. 50% of Swiss people, including me maybe, I haven't checked, have traces of Tutankhamun's chromosomes. And I just look at Geneva. I grew up there as a teenager with my father. Geneva looks beautiful, is beautiful. It has a lake, it has this shadow. It's very peaceful. And it is also a venue for peace, because Switzerland, through the neutrality that we have, and we speak about that later, was an island of peace. Still is in a way. But there is a dark side to it. And as you know, light and darkness, there is a border where darkness, obscurity vanishes because light obliterates it, or vice versa. So Geneva has two sides. It's a banking center, which is good for Switzerland. We are benefiting from it. Let's be honest about that. But we have, in my view, my personal opinion, everything evil related to wars, genocide, including COVID, is from Geneva. You have WHO, in Geneva, a privately financed NGO which has diplomatic immunity, funded mainly by Bill Gates, Germany, China, and Big Pharma and Big Tech. You have Gavi, which has this Bill Gates Foundation in a way, for vaccine developments, in Geneva having diplomatic immunity as well. Why does a medical company, supposedly doing good for people, need immunity? I leave that question in the room. Then you have the WEF, the World Economic Forum, which my father was a co-founder and left Klaus Schwab out of disgust in the early 80s. You have the WEF that has diplomatic immunity. As a business club, it's a private, which is good, why not? Private business clubs. We're not against private business entrepreneurship. This is important for Switzerland. We should not turn away from people other than the WEF who come here to use Switzerland as a venue to discuss economic progress. Why not? Why not? But the WEF in the last years has switched its spirit. It used to be as a foundation, as a founding script, I mean the charter or the statutes say to bring together international business, to foster international business development, efficiency. That sounds all good. I, as a Swiss citizen, right here now, declare that the WEF is not eligible anymore for diplomatic immunity. Why? The Vienna Convention says if the spirit of the applicant, in this case it's the WEF, the spirit and purpose has changed, notably shifted away from the original statutes, then it can be contested. The immunity can be contested. And I advise the Swiss government to lift that immunity. Why? Because Klaus Schwab and his goons, they're promoting hate speech. They're promoting depopulation. I mean, the word alone is just unfathomable. They're promoting electronic control through nanotech. They're promoting control, lockdowns. They're promoting to deprive, and we are a capitalist society, us from private property, private cars. They're promoting that we should eat bugs. They're promoting sexualization of children, LGBTQ plus A1, whatever, woke. So if I have in my country, and I speak about my country, and as a military man I swore on the Constitution. That's my job, even if I'm no longer there. Protect the borders, protect the Constitution, the people, the status quo that we have at birth, the rights on the Constitution. There's an article in the Penal Code of Swiss law, and I don't have it present in my head. I think it's 267, I have to check, or 266. It says, I paraphrase, if an entity has the ambition or manifests to disrupt or disturb the order of the Swiss Constitution, it's considered an enemy, subversive, has to be sent abroad. Now, if they still have these diplomatic passports, in protocol, what then Switzerland would declare them is persona non grata and escort them to the airport to leave the country. That's what has to happen next, because why? The WEF, WHO especially, and Big Pharma, Big Tech, Bill Gates, all advocated a global humanity injection. We say now, scientifically evidenced by any labs and university around the world, by a bioweapon, let's call it mRNA biotech weapon, injecting nanolipids into 5.7 billion people. And I'm asking these people, and I'm asking our justice, and I'm asking our military, I'm asking our police here on camera, if somebody tells you that the neighbor is getting injected by force or by coercion, psychological pressure, QR code, vax mandates, vaxxed, unvaxxed are unconstitutional, injects them, promotes injecting them with a poison, I call on the Swiss authorities and security to arrest those people immediately. The WEF has shown its spots, like the leopard has shown its spots. It became visible because the card of lies has collapsed. If you have a house of cards, like the children sometimes want to build, and this is a house of cards of a criminal, a liar, you don't have to prove all the crimes altogether. That's not the purpose of prosecution. You take the case that is the easiest to prove, and you pull the card. It could be a card on the top or on the bottom, doesn't matter. One card pulled by justice and the whole card house collapses. This now happened. The card houses collapsed. The peculiarity of Geneva is that these people are criminals, in my personal view. They have done greatest damage beyond biblical dimension to humanity. And we Swiss are hosting them. I don't think that is right. I don't think that's terrible. We cannot tolerate any entity that promotes poison to be injected into humanity, breaking the Nuremberg codes, which are 10, all of them been violated. The informed consent has not been followed by all the doctors because the Ministry of Health told them, just do it. It's illegal. And many people, unfortunately, have died already in direct cause with the mRNA biotech bioweapon injection. I recall, and Google that please, the CDC in America has published a headline, I think it's 5 weeks ago, saying that in the US there is a record now, a statistic proving 146% explosive growth of turbo cancer directly caused by the so-called COVID injections. This is enough evidence to stop the whole machine. If Bayer or Sanofi or SmithKline Beecham bring out tomorrow a new headache pill, call it anti-headache 2, and in the next week after market launch, 5 people die from this tablet. 5 in London, 5, or in New York. Guess what happens? License is withdrawn, product is immediately stopped, taken out of the market, and then legal consequences. With Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, this hasn't happened. Therefore, it's a crime. And all these people who committed those crimes and are still walking around know that I know, that they know, that I know what's next. Justice system is dysfunctional at best, absent, and now poses a danger in Geneva, in Zurich, in Lugano, in all our cities, proves that the legal security that we all cherished so long is actually in peril and is posing through its failure, I call it non-viability, a direct, clear and present danger to the Swiss population and all the people who work and live in Switzerland. That is fact. It's the mechanics of law. If we cannot rely anymore on our constitutional law, on our criminal law specifically, if we cannot rely on this as a society then every even foreign investment into Switzerland is at risk. And as a banker, we always look first at the countries, we call it legal transparency. If a legal transparency was high, the rating was higher because the risk to fail was lower. Hungary is a good example in the 90s. When Hungary, after the wall fell, became Western, many companies went to Hungary. Audi, GE, GM, Suzuki, you name it, long list. And they opened factories. Why? Legal transparency was good. A foreigner would win in Budapest against a local partner, if he was right. The fact that WEF, Gavi, WHO specifically still are walking free men and women is a crime and is a flagrant violation, but on its own, evidenced in Switzerland, and it should not be permissible. They should be arrested, all of them, cross-examined. Who knew what, when? Why did you promote this? Poison injection, mRNA biotech injection into humanity. Who gave you the order? Etc., etc. Justice should do its job. This is a plea. In any event, if you don't do it, I speak to justice now here on the camera in Switzerland, you know what is next. There's another coalition at work, and I'm pretty confident that these failures of justice up to now, and now it's October 23, will be corrected by events that I do not control and I have no influence over. But I can tell you, it will be corrected in the name of humanity. So Geneva is opaque, unfortunately, has become much more opaque than in the 80s, but on certain things always been opaque. And it's a shame, I repeat myself, I know, that we Swiss citizens are hosting criminal organizations at the Lake of Geneva, which are private. I repeat, WHO is private. It's a private enterprise, NGO. WEF is private NGO. Gavi is private NGO. Question, why do they have diplomatic immunity? Because they're scared. Right? Now, this is very dangerous for society. And I'm as a victim, I'm dying from these shots. My mother also is now in decline, she's 82. There's a lot of rage, but you know what? I'm not violent. It's not my style. Some other people are, and I caution people, do not get violent. I know, I cannot imagine what people are going through, losing their mother, father, brother, sister, worse, children. I have no children, we have no children. I cannot imagine how I would react, can't. But I call on everybody to apply the light, because we are the guardians of humanity. It's us, our spirit, and our light obliterates the darkness of evil, always. And it will happen, it is happening already. And your question about Geneva, to finish, I believe personally Geneva has a better future ahead of itself. Switzerland has a better future, will come out of this crisis stronger. And I can also guarantee you there will not be any, they're trying, we will not comply. President Trump has said it about 6 weeks ago. To all the COVID psychopaths and tyrants, we will not comply. And the Creator watches those people who are trying to push us into a second, third wave of a pandemic, which is a WHO terminology. Pandemic is an invention by WHO, technically absolutely impossible to manifest naturally, because those are not viruses. Those are gain-of-function research. Gain-of-function research, look it up in Google, is basically development of a bioweapon, and they combined it with biotechnology, nanotechnology, and that makes it a weapon. Now, talking about acts of war, we have been attacked by a bioweapon, which unfortunately comes from the United States, but it is not an act of war from the United States as a nation. It is an act of war committed by criminal, rogue elements of the US military, Mr. Biden, Dr. Fauci, Bill Gates, Obama, Clinton, and all those people. They've been taken care of now because President Trump is the commander-in-chief. It's undoubtedly the case. And he has pulled together all the military under the US Space Force. He has put the US into war, active war. The US, United States codes of court martial are in force. Military justice is enforced. The Law of War Manual 2015, revised in July 23, is in force, and it is global. And it is a coalition of 34 nations that are now cooperating to bring down the cabal who's responsible for all that. So the snake, they came from Egypt, they came to Switzerland. The snake head is one, and it's in Geneva, and it will be severed. And it is already happening because too many people have alternative media. The mainstream media, who are responsible for people to go and get vaccinated, injected. They made unqualified statements. They said it's safe, it's good. They said any professor and scientist like Dr. Stückelberger has been warning the world, do not get injected. This is a biotechnology weapon. And Dr. Stückelberger and Dr. Bhakti, Professor Bhakti, Professor Hadich, Professor Hockertz, and many other professors like Professor Levy, let's say from MIT Boston, is also a friend of mine, they were crucified. They were put into a washing machine of slander and defamation. But you know what? Now we know. They were right, and they are right. And thanks to those warnings of these people, these professors and scientists, thank God, some part of humanity listened to them and just refused to get injected. Some of them, many of them lost their jobs. So to say that the now resigned Alain Berset did not apply force is not true. If you impose a COVID mandate, a QR code to go out or not, to fly a plane or not, that is coercion. And coercion, look it up in Google, is a force. And it can also be argued in court, it is of course a psychological force. And people were forced psychologically to get injected, to do something they didn't really want. And the machine now has fallen apart, and now many of them, like me, find out that we have nanolipids, which are artificial and toxic, in our cells. Our mitochondria have been destroyed. Mitochondria, once they're destroyed, they don't grow back. Cells do, they regenerate. Mitochondria are the life of the body. The heart is important. Of course, everybody talks about the heart. The heart is a pump, very important. Blood pressure, circulation, very important. Yes, yes, yes. But mitochondria, the billions of them we have been attacked by the nanolipids that came in with the injection point as the packaging of the mRNA biotech. And the nanolipids are toxins. On the box it says not for human and animal use. Toxin. So how can Swissmedic and other regulators in Australia, in America, in Germany, EU, how can they argue that this is medicine if it's written toxin? How could you? And doctors, all of you are criminals. All of you, not all of you that pushed on this cylinder, like me, and injected me with this stuff. And the nurses helped You all are criminal and you'll be tried. And you know what? You have no protection. You're not immune. You're not like the WEF who's hiding behind immunity. You will be judged for your crimes. And that's where we are now. We are now in the phase, in my view, where the War Generals Coalition, this is a coalition of 200 active duty generals are at work, 34 nations. I don't know the list. I just know it's happening. We published all the documents. I'm linked to the Space Force, it's known, on the documents.info, the blueprints, the documents.info, the blueprints confirming to you to fact check as a disclosure site and combine and collate and understand that President Trump is the commander-in-chief, the Space Force is on top of all branches of military, and the War Generals Alliance is in force, is active in operation, and the military justice of the US codes of court-martial are in force. To make it simpler for you to understand, these are military tribunal procedures, and you need to know that in war, which America is, it has mobilized 1 million National Guard soldiers in active duty with weapons. Court-martial, the codes of court-martial are clear. A court-martial tribunal can be declared behind a tank, behind a barn, on a highway cafe, in a city, anywhere in the world, in the battlefield, by the commanders themselves, and executed according to the court-martial articles, depending on the crime that has been committed: high treason, genocide, war crimes, and also lesser, would say, severe infractions of the law of war. So to Biden, to Mr. Biden and his people, they committed high treason against the US Constitution and the US military, and abroad they committed a biotechnology, bioweapon terrorist attack on over 194 nations around the globe. It is an act of war because the biotech mRNA injection of Moderna specifically and Pfizer are classified a bioweapon. And for that, they attacked me. I'm a former member of the Swiss military. I rate it is an act of war. Our foreign ministry should take action. Our presidency, which is slightly inefficient, should take action, should also make a report to the UN Security Council immediately. That's what should be done. And that's where I say my advice stops. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I know that justice is on the way, and it's beyond my control, or beyond our control. We are not in the military, and we're not supposed to know what happens tomorrow, because the four-star generals at war will certainly not make a press conference and certainly not disclose what they're doing tomorrow. The snakehead is being cut off, and how it will play out, I don't know. We have recorded now 17.5 million people dead globally. VERS, let's talk about statistics. VERS is a government statistic in the US, North America. They admit, the statistics are online, 40,000 people so far directly linked to the Pfizer Moderna injections, dead, killed. But that represents only 1% of reporting. So multiply that by 100, then you get a North American Canadian space, 4 million humans, including children, killed, murdered. And you still want to talk about COVID and Iris You must be kidding me. So rest assured, the light is on the way, and the US Space Force is important because people don't know about the Space Force, but go to the website. It's really nice. It's quite modern. All members of the US Space Force are called guardians, no matter if you're a chief, master sergeant, or a cadet, or a soldier, an officer. They are called guardians for a reason. That's why I always say, we are the guardians of humanity, and our light obliterates, that's present time formulation, the darkness of evil. Not will, it is. And with that I leave it, really about the snake and Geneva. Very sad for Switzerland, but it's part of Swiss history, not identity, but history. And we are tainted by it, yes. We have to make sure, and the young people who survive through this will be the guarantors, hopefully, that this will never happen again, and that such institutions can never again, be expelled and never arrested, never again take foothold in our blessed country. Never again. So, I think it's the end of the snake. And nobody likes snakes. They're not good. Also in politics, snakes are not good. But in politics, there are too many snakes. And they will be neutralized, to be fair. Neutralized. Yeah. Look, Ukraine is finished. I mean, this whole Ukraine, it's a travesty. Why? People don't understand to read between the lines of Putin and President Trump. The Maidan revolution was a rebellion, was against the Ukrainian constitution. Ukrainian people do not want war, the population. Russia doesn't want war, the population. But in 2014, the rebellion was financed and spearheaded by Victoria Nuland, who is a dangerous neocon, and other traitors to the US Constitution, and they financed the rebellion on Maidan 2014. Then the Maidanists, I call them now Ukro-Nazis, the first thing they have done, go and look it up in YouTube, they tore up the Ukrainian Constitution, betraying their own people. So you cancelled the Constitution. Then there was a vacuum of governance, because President Yanukovych did not order Berkut, the Alpha troops in Kiev, to intervene because it was a chaos and it would have created a bloodshed. He was threatened, his life was under threatened. He and his family escaped to the Russian Federation, Rostov-on-Don. Putin granted the asylum, which I think is noble, and the Maidanists had no government in place. So January, February, March, Kiev was without government. And then we come to the Montevideo Declaration of 1933, which still is valid today, the definition, the duties and rights of a state and definition of a sovereign state. It is land, people, a constitution, a leadership, a government, could be a monarchy, but a government, and the ability, those are the core principles, the ability to establish foreign relations, diplomatic, relations with other countries. If that is not fulfilled, because remember, they tore up the constitution, not fulfilled, no governance, not fulfilled, Ukraine was stateless. Then Poroshenko came in, he was installed, billionaire, chocolate manufacturer, and the first thing he does, he attacks his own people with Russian blood in the Donbass. That's what we call genocide or fascism. We had 14,000 children and civilians killed in 8 years until 22. When then Putin found out that there are 140 plus bioweapon labs in Ukraine, financed by NATO, which Trump hates, and WHO. And Zelensky said we're going to have nuclear weapons in Munich, and the death toll was absolutely staggering. He had to make a decision. If I make no action, a very tough decision, I might have a bioweapon attack on Russian population and or a nuclear attack on Russian population with millions of people killed. Logic, mechanics of war. Toughest decision in his life, I believe. He and his experts decided we have to do something, preempt the to expected disaster, and had to go in. And did it. Didn't go to Kiev, didn't go to Odessa really. Actually, Russia liberated the genocide territories and declared new borders after the referenda of the four regions. 2014, Crimea was not an annexation, same thing. Ukraine was stateless, therefore he asked the people, do you want to become Russian? Yes or no? 96.12% said, yes please. They became Russian, Crimea became Russian. Donbas territory secured, that's all what they're actually doing, they're securing the border. Putin, the Russians have no interest, and of course morally and ethically, to destroy Ukraine, to kill Ukrainians, civilians, no, 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 and again no. Odessa will not be taken by Russia because it would strangulate the country. Ukraine needs to function, needs a port, and the port is Odessa. If you take Odessa away, the country has no shipping, import and exports. Disaster. Zelensky has been uncovered. Biden is not the president, has been laundering money. Hunter Biden has laundered $20 million. Congress has, and the Senate have unveiled that this summer. $20 million. Now you say it's not much. There was over 100 billion going. Biden has sent to the Ukrainians. The money is gone. The weapons are now going to Hamas and all these things, so we know that as well. But let's stick on the 20 million. If you're in America, a foreigner on America, and you want to make a lobby, and that's what Hunter Biden has done. He has given access of the Zelensky regime and Poroshenko earlier to his dad as a vice president under Obama. For that money, that makes you a foreign agent. That is high treason. I was able to lobby 2005 for a Central European, Eastern European client, a nation. I had to register at the FARA as a foreign agent. It's not painful, it's a form. You fill out why you're going, whom you're seeing. In my case, it was George W. Bush and Condoleezza Rice, State Department. So I had to say why. I'm paid to do this by a foreign client to negotiate XYZ agreements for this nation in the East. 2005. I entered the States on that visa as a foreign agent, identified, registered, did the PR lobbying work, and exited the States. Everything's fine, it's not painful. Doesn't cost money. You've got to fill it out. Declare, disclose. Well, Hunter Biden and his dad, vice president under Obama, and then fake President Biden, did not do that. They committed high treason. Fact. Military justice will take care of it. Neutrality, Switzerland.
Hang on, before you go there, it's 40.
Thank you. Neutrality, Switzerland is another sad chapter. The giving up of it. We enjoy neutrality since 1815. Those are the so-called Paris Accords. In the same year of 1815, reconfirmed by the Vienna Congress, so it is valid. And since then, Switzerland enjoys neutrality. Huge benefits. It spared us from getting butchered by the Nazis. We benefited from that neutrality aspect. Our people, we grew up in the wealth created for the people through neutrality. We had Iraq wars, which were illegal. We had other wars. Vietnam. Did Switzerland give up neutrality for that? The massacre in Vietnam? No. But as soon as this war started, this special military operation by Russian Federation going into Ukraine, cleaning, denazifying Ukraine, Switzerland, that was President Cassis, he's looking at that program now, it's good for him, a doctor who never really treated patients, he was always an administrator. President Ignacio Cassis called a warring party on Zoom, in public, my friend Zelensky. You can't do that, Mr. Cassis. We are a neutral country. We cannot give up neutrality for a warring party, for no warring party. Your duty should have been, and is now the current administration, you take that fancy government jet that we are paying for you, this Swiss Air Force plane. You, God forsaken, take that aircraft under the Swiss neutrality banner. You fly, flip a coin, either first to Moscow and see President Putin, and then flip a coin and see Mr. Zelensky, and offer humanitarian help. That is okay, that's fine. And then foster peace, for God's sakes. Invite both parties with President Trump, who's the commander-in-chief, and you know it, Bern, you know it, he's the president, he's in his second term, you know it very well. Invite Commander-in-Chief Trump to Geneva with Putin. Don't even need Zelensky for that, but you invite him because it's equal. Put them on a table and foster peace. We have the expensive mechanisms for that. We have the wonderful venue, wonderful, Geneva for that, where security can be provided for all parties. But Mr. Cassis decided to promise Mr. Zelensky, Switzerland will be your consular office in the world, in Moscow. Before, Mr. Cassis, you should learn, Mr. Cassis, before you promise this to Mr. Zelensky or any other head of state, there's a protocol of the host nation, and you should know that. You should have called first Mr. Putin, no, Mr. Lavrov in your case, or Putin, yeah, you're president, fine. And ask him, listen, I would like to be the consular operation for the Ukrainians in the Swiss embassy. The Russians would have told you, which they told you afterwards, that's egg on your face, excuse me, Mr. Cassis, we cannot do that, because you're not neutral. And you know what? The Russian position is clear. It's not an insult to us, it's a logic consequence of your failure. We cannot give neutrality up for any nation. We cannot join NATO. NATO is a loose object, corrupt. Those NATO weapons, where are they now? Hamas has them now. Go and check. The serial numbers, the US Space Force knows everything. We send money to Kiev, to a war criminal. Zelensky going shopping in Cartier in New York for $1.1 million, spending US and EU taxpayers' money, Swiss. You know, it has to stop. Burn our government, I plead to you. Restore neutrality. That's where we belong. An island of peace, to foster peace. Not to take sides. Never take sides. How can we be fostering peace if we are with one exponent in the world exposed? We are not credible anymore. And the Minsk agreements prove that. Minsk II, Merkel and the French accepted to monitor and police the Minsk agreement. Poroshenko promised the world, yeah, we will ratify them. Russia was not signatory, it was Ukraine, France and Germany, to create peace in the Donbass. As you know, Poroshenko admitted it, and Mrs. Merkel admitted it. They just signed those agreements to gain time for NATO to arm Kiev against Russia. This is perverted. And it's like giving a fox the job to guard a hen house. Okay? How can two NATO members police a peace agreement? So that's a mistake. It should have been Switzerland monitoring and then policing it, the Minsk II or Minsk I even agreements, as a neutral party. It would have worked. But of course, Germany and France, our NATO partners, had and have a vested interest in this ongoing war against Russia. You all failed. All of you failed. All of you failed. Result, over 500,000 Ukrainians and women dead. We have blood donated by Ukrainian citizens. Zelensky said, please give blood for the wounded soldiers on the front. I published on Twitter yesterday the proof. The blood has been sold to Germany, UK, France. Those grandmothers and people were giving blood in Kiev, thinking it goes to help their own sons dying at the front, was loaded on USAID containers and sold in a piggyback money laundering scheme for Zelensky and his people. Can you imagine? It's all public news now, it's all coming out. Switzerland, our country has to stop. I'm a Swiss citizen. My government serves me and my compatriots, and I order them to stop this nonsense. I really do. I'm on the right side. I'm dying from this stuff that you promoted as safe, effective and tested. You were lying to me and the people of Switzerland and the foreigners in our country. You are liars. And that's a crime in this instance. And you'll be judged. It's beyond my control. I'm not involved. I'm not violent. For that we have military justice taking care. Neutrality has to be restored. We have no future not being neutral. We will become one of the poorest countries in Europe. We have no resources. The only thing that we have and had is big Swiss bank secrecy in a way and Swiss banking. And look what happens. Billions are flowing out of Switzerland to Singapore or even to the States. You know, there you go. I don't say the word, it's an English word with F, but we screwed it up. And this is very sad, foremost very sad. It's tragic. But it's never too late, Bern and parliamentarians, all of you journalists. En français, vous êtes des cons. But it's never too late to correct your mistakes, to come forward and say, you know what, we arrest WHO, WF, Gavi, we investigate those crimes against humanity. It's a democide, not even a genocide. Genocide's against a race or a religion. This is worse. Demographics, across the whole spectrum, children to elderly people. It's new terminology. People could not even imagine that this is possible. But you have done it. It's a democide, and you'll be judged. Look, that's my answer to neutrality. It's a mistake to give it up. We have to foster peace. The only position that we are allowed to take and should morally, ethically take is one. It's peace. Not any warring parties. That's very sad. I wish that all people around the world who listen to this realize what happened. The facts are clear. It's not for me to be the missionary. I'm the victim. I'm dying from it. And my mother too. Take note of this. And I think represent the light, because we are the guardians of humanity, and our light obliterates the darkness of evil. Always. Have confidence in yourself. Don't be violent. You don't need to be violent. I think lots of love and energy and light will obliterate the bad now. It's coming out. The snake head is being cut off. And the governments around the world, the corrupt governments around the world, should listen to their inner soul and correct the mistakes. It's never too late. We will overcome this. Humanity is stronger. I am a positive thinker. But from hope alone it is not done. Everybody must now change the spirit. And all the vaccinated, the injected, knowing that they are poisoned, who don't now do something, are protecting a democide. We are the masses. We are billions of people. Let's just stand up and say, stop. We will not comply, and in French, ni oubli, ni pardon. And I thank President Trump, Commander-in-Chief Trump, the Space Force, and I thank President Putin for jointly taking out the cabal. In Helsinki, to finish this off, they had a press conference, 2018, it was summer, and President Putin gave a football to his colleague in a very good ambiance, by the way, the press was there. And he said, Mr. President, I give you this ball as a gift. The ball is now in your court. For those who didn't understand what that means, read up the documents.info. That was the signal to the cabal. From now on, Trump, President Trump and Commander-in-Chief and Putin, up to now and going forward, with 34 nations, are doing their job to liberate humanity from oppression and the lies that we've been told for decades. And I wish that the Creator watches over all human beings and that we are protected.